If you are feeling exhausted, mentally drained, constantly worrying about everything around you, then listen to me very carefully for the next few minutes, because the truth I am about to tell you might change the way you live the rest of your life. You are exhausting yourself caring about things that will not matter to you in 10 years. Yes, you heard that right. The arguments you're replaying in your head, the opinions of people you barely respect, the pressure to prove yourself, the endless worrying about what might go wrong. Most of it will disappear from your life like smoke, and one day you will look back and wonder why you gave so much of your energy to things that never deserved it. I am not guessing about this. I am not repeating some motivational quote I saw on the internet. I know this because I spent 38 years working in hospice care, sitting beside people in the final weeks and days of their lives. More than 2,000 times, I sat in quiet rooms where people knew their time was running out. And something very interesting happens when a person realizes the end is close. All the noise of life disappears. All the pretending stops. And people start telling the truth, not the polite truth, the real truth. They talk about their regrets. They talk about what mattered. They talk about what didn't. And after listening to thousands of those final conversations, I began to notice a pattern. Almost everyone realized the same painful thing too late. They had spent most of their lives caring deeply about the wrong things, things that felt urgent at the time, things that seemed important in the moment, things that stole their sleep, their peace, sometimes even their relationships. But when life was almost over, those things meant absolutely nothing. What kept them awake at night 10 years earlier suddenly looked small. What once felt like a huge battle suddenly looked ridiculous. And the tragedy is this: most people do not realize this truth until they are much older, much sicker, or much closer to the end than they ever expected to be. They look back at their life and quietly say something like this: "Why did I waste so much of myself on that?" I have heard those words more times than I can count, and I do not want that to be you. I want to tell you now, while you still have time to do something with this information. Because when you understand what truly stops mattering at the end of life, you can start letting go of those things today. So today, I want to share with you 7 things I stopped caring about after spending nearly 4 decades watching people face the end of their lives. The first one might surprise you, because it was one of the hardest lessons for me to learn. Number 1, I stopped caring about being right. For most of my life, I believed that if I was right about something, I had a responsibility to prove it. If someone said something incorrect, I corrected them. If someone disagreed with me, I debated them. If a conversation ended without me making my point clearly enough, I would replay it in my mind for hours, sometimes days. I would come back later with new evidence, new arguments, new facts. I thought I was defending the truth. I thought I was being helpful. But after sitting with dying people for almost 40 years, I discovered something that shocked me. Not once, not a single time did anyone say this at the end of their life: "I wish I had won more arguments." Not once in 38 years. But I heard something else again and again, something much more painful. People would say, "I wish I had not let small disagreements turn into long silences. I wish I had let my brother be wrong about politics instead of turning it into a family war. I wish I had just stayed quiet and let it go." Because being right comes with a cost. A cost most people never think about. It costs energy, it costs relationships, and sometimes it costs peace. You win the argument, but the other person walks away resentful. You prove your point, but the distance between you grows. For about 15 minutes you feel victorious. Then the feeling fades, and what remains is a relationship that is just a little colder than it used to be. That is a terrible trade. So eventually I learned something that changed my life. You do not have to correct everyone. You do not have to win every debate. You do not have to prove you are right. Most battles are simply not worth fighting. Let people believe what they believe. Let them be wrong if they want to be wrong. Protect your peace instead, because the energy you save by letting small things go is enormous. Number 2, I stopped caring about being understood by everyone. For a very long time, I believed something that many people still believe today. I thought if someone misunderstood me, it was my job to fix it. If someone thought poorly of my intentions, I felt responsible to explain myself. So I would do exactly that. I would explain and explain and explain again. I would revisit conversations days later to clarify what I meant. I would carefully choose my words, trying to make sure there was no room for misunderstanding. Sometimes I would lie awake at night thinking about how I could have said something better, how I could have made someone see my perspective, how I could make them understand that I meant well. But after many years of doing this, I finally realized something very important. Some people are not going to understand you, not because you explained badly, not because you chose the wrong words, but because they have already decided who you are. And once someone has made up their mind about you, your explanations rarely change anything. Some people are not interested in understanding you. They are interested in being right about their opinion of you, and no amount of talking will change that. I remember a woman named Patricia very clearly. This was sometime around 1989. She was 76 years old, and cancer had spread throughout her entire body. She knew her time was short, maybe a few weeks, maybe less. During those final days, Patricia spent most of her energy writing letters, long letters, very emotional letters. She was writing to people from her past, people who had misunderstood her years earlier. Some of them were family, some were old friends, some were people she had not spoken to in decades. Her goal was simple. Before she died, she wanted to set the record straight. She wanted them to finally understand her. Day after day, she sat in her bed writing. Her hands were shaking. Her energy was almost gone. But she kept writing. Finally, one afternoon, I gently asked her a question. I said, "Patricia, do you believe these letters will change their minds?" She looked at me for a long moment, a very long moment. Then she sighed softly and said, "Probably not." So I asked her something else. "If that is true, why are you spending your last days doing this?" She stared at the paper in front of her. Then slowly, she put down the pen. She never picked it up again. Instead, she spent the rest of her time doing something much more important. She sat with her grandchildren. She told them stories. She laughed with them. She held their hands. And for the first time in weeks, she looked peaceful. That moment stayed with me for years because it taught me something powerful. You are not responsible for managing what happens inside someone else's mind. You can speak honestly. You can say what you mean. But you cannot control how other people interpret it, and trying to control that will exhaust you. So now I follow a simple rule. I say what I mean once, clearly, honestly, and if someone misunderstands me or chooses not to understand, I let it go. Because the people who truly matter in your life will understand your heart anyway, and the people who do not will believe whatever they want no matter what you say. So stop exhausting yourself trying to be understood by everyone. It is not your responsibility. Number 3, I stopped caring about what my body looks like. Now let me be very clear about something. Health matters. Taking care of your body matters. But I am not talking about health. I am talking about appearance. I am talking about the endless pressure to look acceptable in the eyes of strangers. For decades, I worried about my weight, my skin, my hair, my clothes. I would stand in front of the mirror and mentally list everything that was wrong. My arms looked too soft. My stomach was not flat enough. My thighs looked bigger than they should. So I avoided things. I avoided swimming because I did not want people to see my body. I avoided wearing certain clothes because I thought they showed too much. I spent an incredible amount of time trying to look acceptable. And do you know something strange? The standard kept changing. Just when I thought I was close enough, the world moved the goalpost again. But now I am 90 years old, and I can tell you something with absolute certainty. Your body is not a performance. It is not a project. It is simply a vehicle. It is the thing that carries you through your life. That is all it is. Every person who ever judged your body, every person who ever made you feel like you were not thin enough, or young enough, or attractive enough, they were not actually talking about you. They were talking about their own fears, their own insecurities, their own discomfort with themselves. So do not let their suffering become yours. Wear what you want. Eat the cake. Go swimming. Dance. Laugh. Stop hiding your life while waiting for your body to become perfect. Because one day you will wake up in an older body, a body that moves slower, a body that cannot do the things it once could, and you will think something very simple. I wish I had enjoyed it more when it still worked. Number 4, I stopped caring about keeping up with everything. For most of my life, I felt a constant pressure to stay informed. I believed that a responsible person should always know what was happening in the world. So I watched the news every evening. I read newspapers. I followed political arguments. I tried to understand every new technology, every social trend, every public controversy. If I missed something important in the news cycle, I felt like I had fallen behind, like I was somehow failing to keep up with the world. Maybe you feel this pressure too. The sense that you must stay updated on everything. The feeling that if you don't know the latest headlines, the newest internet debates, the newest crisis everyone is talking about, then somehow you are disconnected from reality. But somewhere in my 80s, I realized something very simple. The world never stops making noise. There will always be another crisis, another scandal, another argument that everyone insists is the most important issue of the moment, but most of those things disappear almost as quickly as they arrive. The topic everyone is furious about this week will be replaced by something new next week. The headlines that feel urgent today will be forgotten in 6 months. And yet, we spend enormous amounts of our mental energy reacting to them. We carry the stress of problems we cannot solve. We argue with strangers about issues that will never personally affect our lives. We fill our minds with noise. Eventually, I decided to stop trying to keep up with everything. Instead, I choose a few things that truly matter to me, things close to my life, things where my attention actually makes a difference. Everything else I let pass by. I do not know every controversy happening on the internet. I do not know which celebrity offended which group this week. I do not know every outrageous thing a politician said. And you know what? My life is not worse because of that. It is better. My mind is quieter. My days are calmer. I have space to think, space to breathe, space to enjoy the small, real things in front of me. You are allowed to step away from the noise. You are allowed to say, I do not have an opinion about that. You are allowed to stop chasing every new crisis. Focus on what is real. Focus on what is close. Focus on what actually touches your life. Everything else is just noise. Number 5, I stopped carrying old grudges. For many years I held on to anger, like it was something valuable. I remembered every insult, every betrayal, every moment when someone hurt me. There were people I had not forgiven for things that happened decades earlier. Sometimes something small would remind me of them, and suddenly the anger would rise again, as if the wound had just happened yesterday. I would replay conversations in my mind. I would imagine confrontations that never actually happened. I would rehearse what I would say if I ever saw them again. But here is the strange part. While I was carrying all that anger, those people were living their lives. They were not thinking about me. They had probably forgotten whatever happened. The only person being hurt by my resentment was me. I was carrying a heavy weight everywhere I went, and they were carrying nothing. Working in hospice made this truth impossible to ignore. Over and over again, I saw people nearing the end of their lives suddenly desperate to fix broken relationships, families rushing to repair decades of distance, brothers who had not spoken in 40 years suddenly trying to reconcile in a hospital room. Sometimes it worked. Sometimes people found the courage to forgive each other in those final moments, but often it was too late. One person had already passed away, or the pain had grown too deep to heal quickly, and people would leave this world still carrying regret. Watching that happen again and again changed something inside me. I realized that waiting to forgive is a dangerous gamble, so eventually I made a decision. I forgave everyone. Not because they deserved it, not because what they did was acceptable, but because I no longer wanted to carry the weight. Forgiveness is not a gift you give to the person who hurt you. It is a gift you give to yourself. It is the moment when you finally put down a heavy burden you were never meant to carry for the rest of your life. Now when I think about those old conflicts, I feel nothing. No anger, no bitterness, just distance, and a quiet sense of freedom. Because the time we have in this life is far too precious to spend it replaying pain from 50 years ago. Number 6, I stopped caring about what my adult children think of my choices. This one is uncomfortable for many people, and I understand why. Because when you become a parent, a huge part of your identity becomes tied to your children. You spend years protecting them, guiding them, sacrificing for them, losing sleep because you worry about them, making decisions that revolve entirely around their well-being. For decades, your life is shaped around their needs. I raised 3 children. I gave them everything I had, my time, my attention, my patience, my energy. I made choices I did not always want to make because I believed they were best for my family. That is what parents do. But eventually something happens. Children grow up. They become adults. They build their own lives. They develop their own opinions. And somewhere along the way, I realized something surprising. Even though my children were adults, I was still trying to please them. I was still shaping my decisions around whether they would approve of them. I was afraid they would think I was being foolish, or irresponsible, or making the wrong choices. That realization stopped me in my tracks. Because here was the truth. My children love me deeply. I know that. But loving someone does not mean they always know what is best for that person. Sometimes love comes with fear, and fear can make people overly protective. When my husband Tom died in 2012, my children were terrified of losing me too. They worried constantly. They thought I should move into assisted living immediately. They believed living alone was too dangerous. They had long conversations about what I should do, and I listened. I respected their concern. I considered their perspective, but in the end, I made my own decision. I stayed in my apartment. I installed a medical alert button. I made small adjustments to stay safe. But I refused to give up my independence simply because someone else was afraid, even if that someone was my own child. Because here is something many parents forget. Your children grow up. but you are still a person. You do not stop being a whole human being just because your children are adults. You are still allowed to choose how you live your life. Your children may have opinions. They may disagree with your choices. They may worry about you, but their concern does not mean they get to control your life. Love them, listen to them, consider their perspective, and then make your own decision anyway, because your life still belongs to you. Number 7, I stopped caring about being productive all the time. This lesson might be the hardest one of all, especially for people in your generation, because from the moment we are young, we are taught something very dangerous. We are taught that our value comes from what we produce, from what we accomplish, from how useful we are to the world. Work hard, stay busy, be productive, earn your place. That message follows us our entire lives. So when people retire, something strange happens. They suddenly feel lost. They no longer have a job title. They no longer have deadlines. They no longer have a schedule telling them where to be and what to accomplish. And many people start to feel like they no longer matter. I felt this too. After spending 38 years working in hospice, I retired, and I quickly realized something uncomfortable. I did not know how to simply exist. So I volunteered for 20 more years, not because I had to, but because I did not know how to sit still. I did not know how to feel valuable without being productive. Then something happened that forced me to learn. My body began slowing down. I could not do as much. I could not volunteer as often. My energy simply was not the same. And suddenly I had to face a question I had avoided my entire life. Who am I if I am not constantly doing something? It took me years to understand the answer. Your value does not come from your productivity. You are not a machine designed to produce output. You are a human being. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to spend a day reading a book. You are allowed to sit quietly and watch the rain. You are allowed to have hours, even entire days, where nothing productive happens. And your life is still meaningful. The modern world pushes something called the cult of productivity. It tells you every minute must be optimized. Every hour must move you toward a goal. Every day must produce results. But that is not how a peaceful life is lived. A good life has empty spaces. A good life has rest. A good life has slow mornings and quiet afternoons. Moments where you are not accomplishing anything. You are simply alive, and that is enough. I am 90 years old now. I have watched more than 2,000 people reach the end of their lives. I have sat beside hospital beds, quiet rooms, dimly lit hospice halls, where people finally face the truth about their lives. And when that moment comes, something interesting happens. The noise of the world fades away. All the things that once felt urgent suddenly feel small. All the things that once seemed so important lose their power. People stop talking about achievements. They stop talking about status. They stop talking about who won which argument. Instead, they talk about something much simpler. They talk about peace. They talk about love. They talk about time. They talk about the people they wish they had spent more moments with. They talk about the memories they wish they had created, and almost every single person I sat with shared the same quiet realization. They had cared too much about the wrong things. They had spent their energy on battles that never mattered. They had worried about opinions from people who barely knew them. They had chased perfection in their appearance. They had carried grudges that only poisoned their own hearts. They had tried to keep up with a world that never slows down. They had pushed themselves to be productive every minute of every day. And at the end, none of those things were what they wanted. None of those things were what they wished they had more of. What they wanted was simple. They wanted the people they loved nearby. They wanted peace in their hearts. They wanted to feel like their life had meant something to someone. They wanted to feel like they had truly lived, and many of them had one final regret. They realized they had spent too much of their life worrying about things that never deserved their attention in the first place. So let me tell you something honestly. You are probably wasting part of your life right now. Not all of it, but some part of it. Some of your attention, some of your emotional energy, some of your time is being poured into something that will not matter in the end. I cannot tell you exactly what that thing is for you. Maybe it is a pointless argument. Maybe it is someone's opinion of you. Maybe it is the pressure to prove something. Maybe it is a grudge you have been holding for years. Maybe it is the endless race to stay busy and productive. Whatever it is, you do not have to wait until you are 90 years old to let it go. You do not have to wait until you are sick. You do not have to wait until life forces the lesson on you. You can choose to put it down today, right now. Protect your peace. Choose what truly deserves your energy. Choose the people who matter. Choose the moments that make life meaningful. Because one day, whether we like it or not, the end will arrive. It comes for everyone, and when that moment comes, you do not want to look back and realize you spent your one precious life caring about things that never deserved your heart in the first place. Live wisely, let go early, and spend your life on what truly matters. If this message spoke to you, don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe for more wisdom that can change the way you live. And remember, life is short. Spend it on what truly matters.